Good morning. Thank you for listening to WXOX 97.1 FM in Louisville, Kentucky, or perhaps you are streaming on artxfm.com. This is LVA's Artebella on the radio, the show produced by Louisville Visual Art. My name is Keith Waits, the host, and I'm talking today to, I've got two artists on this lovely fall morning. First off, born a Yankee and wandering through the South, Sabra Crockett finally found her home in Louisville, Kentucky with all the beautiful songbirds surrounding her and the most spectacular variety of trees she could possibly hope for. Crockett has exhibited extensively in Kentucky and in New York City, North Carolina, California, and in De Harmony at Leeuwarden in the Netherlands. Probably I said that incorrectly. She has worked in many corporate collections around this region. And also with us today and partnering in this exhibit is Edwin Ramirez. He is a Chicano multimedia artist, DJ, hairdresser, campaign organizer, and professional dog trainer. My skills are quite varied, or his skills are quite varied, but his career focus is to assist progressive candidates to win seats in public office. Their exhibit, The Education of Desire, opens November 3rd at Core Gallery with an opening reception on November 6th from 6 to 9 p.m., and it will run through November the 28th. Good morning. How you doing?
Good morning, Keith. Thank you so much for having us. We really appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. And it's so you're having this lovely fall sunlight in your studio after 3 days of gloom in Louisville, 3 days of rain and overcast and dark. It's kind of glorious. This exhibit, Sabra, you had mentioned it too. I mean, this is clearly an important exhibit from you. I was kind of shocked to find that, is this true that this is your first solo exhibit in Louisville?
It is my first solo exhibit in a commercial gallery, yes. So I've done solo exhibits in coffee shops and one in a Pilates studio, which I did very well. But honestly, this is my first solo show in a gallery. So I'm in a commercial gallery. Yeah, I'm super excited about this.
Well, because you have exhibited so much and done so many things. It surprised me a little bit that was the case here. So talk to me a little bit about, so I know this exhibit seems especially important to you in your career, something of a milestone, perhaps, I guess, if that word is not incorrect to say. So talk to me a little bit about what work we're going to find from you here.
I'll tell you a little about the title. The Education of Desire was actually the title of a paper that Baruch Spinoza, who was one of the great rationalist philosophers of the 17th century, wrote. Mm-hmm. And his philosophy was that God or the divine did not create nature, but instead nature and the divine are the same. And so this body of work was kind of created to ask the question of what is our relationship to nature and how do we value it? And so that title I felt was very appropriate because we have different components of desire towards nature. We have the desire to attain, which is usurping the land for natural resources to survive and to attain wealth. We have the desire to preserve or protect, because we see that nature is kind of delicate in a sense. It's also resilient, but we can see the damage that we're doing. And there are so many organizations that are aware of this and trying to protect and preserve the natural elements. And then we have the desire to connect. And this one is where I kind of feel the most important, is that the desire to connect kind of hits a spiritual realm in a sense that, and so with the education of desire being that, you know, the nature and the divine are the same, well, I also feel that we are a part of nature. So in the sense, I think we're kind of disconnecting ourselves from a spiritual sense of ourselves and of nature, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so the kind of goal of my artwork is to bring that connection back and to kind of revive a sense of sacredness and respect towards nature, which in turn revives a sense of sacredness and respect towards ourselves and prompts us into action.
It's interesting. The word desire, I feel like, immediately has a connotation connected to romance and sexuality and sensuality. But here you're giving it sort of a different context about desires outside of those parts of our identities.
It has more to do with passion than actual sensual or sexuality. Mm-hmm. And I think the passion to protect, to preserve is definitely there, but I think there's also a passion that kind of turns into greed with some people, that the passion to attain, to control. And so it can be like a double-edged sword in a way, that the desire, right? It just depends on how we're using it and what our intentions are.
Well, I think greed is really the key word there in what you're talking about. People that view nature as just a resource for industry and monetary gain.
Yes.
Instead of something else. I don't want to wait too long here to get Edwin in. So Edwin, talk to me about, so what role are you playing here? What's your work like? And how are we going to encounter you in this exhibit?
Well, my work is usually wearable pieces. So I think it is really important to me to showcase my work on a human body. So opening a reception, there will be 3 models that will be wearing my work, my mother being included in that as well, which I'm very excited about. And, my work really just focuses on our connection with nature and the systems that happen that we can see, but connecting with the systems that happen inside of us that we just completely forget about, and the similarities that they share. So between our circulatory system and how, it relates to rivers and streams, and, working with all these different natural materials, have tried to recreate some semblance of what, our insides kind of look like and do, and the color schemes, and just how they tie in with nature's natural systems in general. So
I think that's so fascinating, and for a very particular reason. I was in an artist studio a couple of weeks ago and looking at a metal piece that they had taken it from, they had cast from a piece of wood, and I was looking at it and I thought, that looks like it looks like a spinal column. It looks like something inside of us. And the idea that I think this is, and it's not that I'd never thought about that before, but it was so interesting to be reminded of it so powerfully, that we are organic forms. Everything about us is an organic form, in the same way that we encounter organic forms in nature. And I feel like people never connect those two things, but that we are built the same way that nature is built in some fashion. Mm-hmm. Sounds like that's what you're getting at. Is that correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And mostly as a reminder that we're no different than just this very foundation we stand on, that is Earth, and we have to take care of it, just like self-care is so important as well. Mm-hmm. So
well, of course, what sets us apart is that we have the ability to destroy parts of nature.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's what distinguishes us,
right?
Including ourselves. Well, it's very clear to me. It's like I've always, I don't mean to go off on a soapbox. I want you guys to talk, but our attack on the environment, it seems like nothing more than that's the suicide of our race, right? We're just doing everything we can to ruin ourselves and kill ourselves off. Right. So this is a very overt sort of environmental message here.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I know Sabra's work. I've known her work for a while, and that's totally there. Edwin, has this always been sort of a dominant theme for you?
A little bit. I think a lot of my thinking has shifted since the pandemic started, where, I was really faced with my own mortality, with watching things just unfold, watching Governor Bashir make these addresses every day, and just really thinking about just how quick things can change and how they did so fast, and really had me think about just how incredible our bodies are, but also how fragile they are as well. Because it was just, coronavirus attacks your respiratory system, and just one system goes down and all other systems go offline, and it's really terrifying. And so it really made me think a lot about ourselves, and a lot of my previous work I've used to basically hide my humanity, like to kind of turn into some sort of creature that I've created, or something. And so with this body of work, it is very, very different than anything I've produced. And it is a celebration of just our human selves, and making sure that I can see who is behind the mask. So there's a lot of negative space that I've used, because the textures of the face and the body is also an important part of the work, which you won't really be able to see that since it's installed. But the intention is for folks to wear it.
And you're a three-dimensional artist, right? In this instance, are these? Well, let me pull that back. You're a multimedia artist, but just based on a couple images I saw, it seems like what was coming into this show is going to be more three-dimensional or installation, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So how did you guys come together to do this? What was the first impulse? Have you known each other a long time, and it just sort of came up?
We've known each other for not a long time, but actually Edwin has a studio here at Art Sanctuary, and so do I. And so we just started becoming friendly and chatting, and I was just a huge fan of his work. I just thought it was amazing. Nothing I've ever seen before. Using the elements that he does and how he infuses them and then transforms them is really spectacular. So it was actually Don Cartwright, who owns Core Gallery, contacted me. Well, actually, we kind of came upon agreement that I should have a solo show. And then Don contacted me and said, who would you like as a 3D artist to exhibit with you? And I'm like, oh my God, Edwin would be perfect. I think, because I feel that he did have the same themes that were kind of on the same philosophy. And I just think his work is really incredible and everybody should see it. So I asked him, and he was like, yeah, definitely. So I was really glad to give him this opportunity and kind of push him in a way that he really has never been pushed. So
it's very exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting. Like, we've both had a lot of growth through this experience, and it's just amazing. I can't wait to show everybody what we've done. So
that's really cool that it was from being in the studio space together, because that you sort of hope that artists in the same building or adjacent studio spaces or nearby, whatever, that is always an opportunity for that to happen, for you to make some sort of connection and have a relationship. So particularly since you have studios so close to each other, did you see the work developing for the show? Did each other's work inform your own work?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very important part, I think, of this whole process, and having Sabra here as not just a friend, but as a resource as well. And this is the first time I've ever created a body of work. I've always just created random pieces, or, hey, there's this party coming up and I'm going to become this thing today, So to have her help guide me through that process, and come over here and be like, oh, I've been staring at this thing for so long. I'm just spinning in a circle. Like, I'm going to come bother you for a while. It was just been so helpful and such an important part of this whole process. So.
And I can feel the same way, that I would have him come over and look at a piece and be like, what, so it's good to have a fresh set of eyes look at it and give you like constructive criticism. And we were able to do that for each other, which I think is really wonderful and important as an artist. Every artist should have that.
Is it fair to say that the resulting work that goes into the show would not be what it was without the input of the other artist?
I don't think so.
Yeah. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
Okay. So there's some other people, because I just want to, there's some other things when I look at the event page and stuff like that, there's some other things happening during the opening. Some other people are doing some things. What else is going on around you?
So I asked Dane Waters and Amber Thieneman if they would like to perform so a musical kind of performance. And I don't know how many people are familiar with experimental music, but actually it was Cher Vaughn that contacted me when she was around here, and it was a couple of years ago, but she created this kind of a cappella group with just singers, and it was all just whatever you wanted it to be. We didn't really have any rehearsals or anything, and it was whatever came out of your mouth. And we would just kind of listen to each other and everything. So that's how I met Dane and Amber. And because of the nature of this show, I felt that the experimental aspect of it with voice and sound would be appropriate. And so I asked them if they would like to perform with us, because actually Edwin and I have also been creating some music together. And so we've recorded a couple of sessions, and then we also had Dane and Amber come in and record a couple of sessions. And so it's going to be kind of interesting experimental music that might put you in a sense of joy and elation and beauty, but could also kind of push you in a way that you've never been pushed before too. So the music is art in a sense. It's like sound art. And I think it's just going to be a really interesting layer to the night and working. So yeah, so that's what's happening.
I really value the sort of hesitancy you have, because it suggests that you're not even sure exactly how that's going to play out, or how that's going to, which is a bit of risk, which is what art is about.
Right,
I think that's an important part of it.
And it is just a big experiment. So
yeah, it's a big experiment.
Too much into you, but I also want to give you kudos for seeing this. It's so funny you're describing this as your first solo show, yet you've made it into a highly collaborative event, like a happening, right? Like all this other stuff is going to happen. So it sounds like it's going to be also kind of a party.
That's what I want. Keith, I want a party. In fact, we have an after party at our sanctuary the same night. So
I know,
this really is just about celebration of everything, because we've had 2 really, really rough years, and I want to bring everybody in and all my friends and just celebrate life, because we made it.
Well, and of course, I would suggest, like, we're still making it, right? We're not out of this, but we're still making it. And and I hope, it's been so easy to be down about everything and depression and sleeplessness. I hear that the number one problem with health in America right now is that nobody's getting enough sleep, right? And it's this cumulative thing from the last 2 years. But we're also in a place now where we can do some things. We can do, if we're still careful enough, we can do things and be together. And that's what you're celebrating.
Definitely. And I do have to add that at this show, they do require your vaccination card.
Yes.
So you do have to have proof of vaccination, and it is masked. So Dawn's really careful about those things, because we're expecting quite a lot of people, but we want everybody to be safe. But I want to give an opportunity for everybody to enjoy themselves and kind of come together in a safe way. And
unfurl.
Just
why the event is called the Unfurling of Desire.
Yes.
Right. So I know. So we're going to the education of desire, and then we're going to go to the after party, which is the unfurling of desire. So that's where we get educated, and then we go unfurl.
Absolutely. And you will unfurl with 3 artists named Erica Williams, Laura Roundtree, and Robert Major, who is my husband. So they will be creating some amazing installation work. Well, they have been creating. So we all are transforming the space downstairs, the event space. So there'll be more art to see and lots of dancing to do.
And some aerialists, and we're going to have DJs as well. So
cool. Well, I mean, again, and that's a space where you can do all that stuff. I've seen all that stuff happen in that space at Art Sanctuary. So I want to ask a little bit about this music. So Edwin, on your biography, music's like an important thing. But let's start with, so you say you're a DJ, but you're talking about creation of music now, new things that you're doing with Sabra, and then I'm guessing maybe you've done. What's the distinction between like a DJ, like when are you a DJ and when are you a multimedia artist? Like what's the distinction there, and how much is music, the creation of new and original music, a part of what you do?
So that's a really interesting question, and I think being a DJ, one of the most important part of that is being a listener and knowing what drives you, so that when it comes to creating an environment, to create a vibe, so to speak, you can flow in and out of sounds and different songs, and create an atmosphere, versus being a creator where everything is influenced by everything else. So obviously the music you like will likely influence the music you make. And I've actually been making music since 2014. I have so many unfinished projects. I'm really good at starting a bunch of stuff and never actually finishing it, which is why the show was really challenging for me. So Sabra also has a background in music, and she has made music before. And I think one of the very first conversations we had was about music, and you were telling me about your project with Shervon.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, we were just talking, and then Sabra asked about, what do you think about having this musical component? Because I'm very into creating environments. We call them emotional landscapes, which is a song lyric in Bjork's song. And when I think about emotional landscapes, that to me is just, it's such a powerful, I don't even know what you would call that saying, I guess.
Yeah, well, it experience, term,
all of the above.
Yeah.
So with the musical component in this, I think of it as we're creating this environment where her portraits of these incredible animals and all these natural materials that I'm using. And it's like we're creating this micro environment. So of course, there has to be some ambience to it. There has to be some sound component to it, because everywhere you go, there's something happening, whether it's a bird or even traffic sounds. And we just wanted to just make it all come together and just kind of build our own little world. So
will the two of you be performing at the after party?
Oh, we won't be performing at the after party. We're going to be
I thought maybe you were going to premiere some of the music you've been doing together. No?
Oh, I don't think so.
It'll get uploaded to SoundCloud.
Yeah.
And
then Brian.
And Brian Drabant, who is also in Louisville, he's been such a helpful and really important part of this, because we're creators, but then the actual,
I'm not a technical person when it comes to that at all.
Yeah, so
it's just like,
it's so hard.
I can tune my voice and that's about it.
So, well, yeah, because I'm really curious to hear what it sounds like. And I guess maybe I knew this and forgot about you, Sabra, but that you have this sort of background. And I know you've done many things. The biography you have on your website, which I read, seems to point really to what you're doing right now. But I know you've done so many things. You've done a lot of work in the theater. So I guess it doesn't surprise me maybe that you have had this experience with music. But what's kind of interesting too is as you're talking about all these different elements and the experimental music and sound and environments, and thinking back to though that this is really coming from your work is not at all old-fashioned. It's very of the moment, but these are somewhat traditional. They are paintings, and to think that these traditional forms have spurred all of this other kind of things, these other kind of things to happen that are less traditional, more experimental, and carry more risk to it, is really interesting to me. And I mean, it sounds like you did make a deliberate decision, but did you envision how much of this kind of thing would wind up becoming a part of this exhibit and this night?
I mean, it was always kind of in the back of my head, but it also kind of just unfurled.
Yeah.
That word.
Lean into it.
Yeah. Yeah. It just kind of all came together in a sense, like I wasn't really thinking I'm going to have a solo show and I'm going to have performers and I'm going to have an after party. It was just kind of like, oh, I'm so excited to have a solo show. Oh, I want Edwin to be in my solo show. Oh, Edwin's a musician. Oh my gosh, we could do music together. Oh, Dane and Amber are musicians too. It was kind of that the opportunity kind of lent itself, and then I kind of grasped onto it. But yeah, I mean, I've always wanted to develop my music in a sense. I haven't really had a lot of time because I've just been working visually, but I mean, I do have a musical background. I was in a couple of bands before I was in Louisville. I've always enjoyed singing. I think it's an integral part of my creative process. And to kind of bring that in the forefront is a little intimidating because I don't really advertise that I have a lot of music in me.
Right.
It's definitely more a visual aspect to it. So, but I think I'm ready now, to kind of go out there and put my music and definitely collaborate with musicians more.
And she's an incredible vocalist.
Thanks.
Well,
it's
and
just
so
haunting and beautiful.
Listening to you talk about all this, of course, what you're saying in a word is this all developed organically, which goes back to the very idea of the show and nature and our relationship to nature, and which is organic, and which I think we fight against that. But it's also, because you started out by saying At one point you said you were one to push Edwin, and it sounds like Edwin has pushed right back now, right? Like you're pushing him as a visual artist and he's pushing you with music. So that there's a real balance here.
Definitely.
And it's
also important.
And it's been great. And it's been really fun.
Yeah. Super fun. I'm really looking forward to what we're going to create in the future, because I think we're going to do some pretty amazing things together.
Yeah. So you definitely don't see this as like, okay, we've done our thing and we're done with a collaboration. You definitely see a future working together.
Oh yeah.
I think it's only the beginning.
Yep.
Cool. Well, and Edwin, I feel like, again, it's a brief introduction, but it's an interesting, all these things that you do, and you're a professional dog trainer, which means like I love you because I love dogs. So if you're into dogs, man, I'm all like, you're a great human being, right? That's how I view it. If anybody doesn't like my dog, it's just like, we are never really going to be friends in a meaningful way. But also this career you have in politics, which, again, my first reaction, and I fully recognize that some of my reactions are based on stereotypes and cliches, but that just seems very far removed from this world of artistic creativity. Is it like a whole nother side of you, or do you feel like all of this stuff is actually very well merged together?
I mean, it's all, yeah. I mean, I think it has to be all interconnected for me to be part of it, to want to do it. So when we talk about, me being a dog trainer or having worked in political campaigns, the intention behind it is just trying to, like, not just better myself, but help better others as well. So, whether it's, trying to fight for environmental justice and, getting representation for people who really need it, especially in a state like Kentucky, because it's real rough here.
Yeah.
It's real rough. And then as well, we have some of the worst, if not the worst, animal welfare laws in the country. And so there's just a lot of misinformation about our own pets, which are very common. And lots of people have dogs that live in their house, and a lot of people just don't really know a lot about how they work and just their everyday needs. And so just always try to be a resource for folks. And it absolutely is all interconnected with my art and how it plays out, some of the themes behind it.
Well, and when you talk about that, I mean, I feel like most of the people I know that have dogs really want to have dogs and have an understanding of that. But there's a reason why, as many responsible animal people that we all know, and I kind of feel, I'd like to think that more people in the creative communities are very responsible dog owners that maybe, but then the shelters all get filled. And that's, and I think we've all seen people that get a dog because they think it's a good idea in the moment, and then they don't really want to deal with it, and then they abandon it or turn it over to the shelter. Is that what you're kind of talking about? That people making a decision to bring an animal into life without understanding all of the responsibility and the things about the animal?
Yeah, and it can go in a lot of different ways. It can also go in the way that sometimes animals, cats, dogs, really any pets that we bring home, sometimes they're not the right fit. And I think it's also a really important and conversation where sometimes it just doesn't work out. It's like a bad relationship, and it's like, you're just not the one for me. And part of my job sometimes is telling folks, like, you shouldn't have to break yourself to make this relationship work, because at the end we know that it's not going to. So it's better to, like, help this animal just move on so that you can move on, and for the best for everybody.
I had a dog for 15 of her 16 years. And it was interesting to me because I had shared a house with people that had two dogs, and they moved away, and everybody said, "Oh, you're going to get a dog, right? You're going to get a dog. You must live with a dog now." But I waited, and when it was a friend of mine was fostering that dog, and when I met her, I really had a very strong instinct, and it was like all the right kind of things for me. And it was we really were simpatico. There was something that like we were meant to come together. And so now it's the same thing. It's like I want another dog, but I don't, like, I just go haunt the shelters, and then what am I, it's like I feel like I need that connection again. And that if I just go bring another animal in the house just to take up space, that's not right. That's irresponsible. But that relationship can be very hard to find.
Yeah, it can be.
It can be. Yep.
But
well,
just like it is with other people and our
sure.
friends, and you gotta vibe with folks.
Yep.
You do. You absolutely do. And I don't know, we're here to talk about art, but this is one of the things that always interests me by doing this show is you can talk strictly about the art, but really we've ended up talking about the themes and subjects of your art, right? And the things that are important, and all these things matter. Animals are in Sabra's paintings, and you're a dog trainer. It's interesting to see the balance between the two of you in all these different kinds of things, and how to step back at it now, even though you came together through circumstance and an organic relationship, you could examine it for a minute, and it's like it makes perfect sense that you guys hit it off this well in a way.
Yeah.
We have a lot to learn from one another, and it's, I don't know, I'm like totally in love with Sabra. She's amazing, and has just become a really close friend throughout this process.
I feel the same. I'm totally in love with Edwin.
Well, I know.
No,
well, I'm just like,
go ahead.
Of course, Sabra is very lovable, and we all know that. And so,
No.
and so she would tend to only be drawn to lovable people, I guess, right? Well, thank you guys so much for talking today. So we're just finishing up here with Sabra Crockett and Edwin Ramirez, and the exhibit, The Education of Desire, opens November 3rd at Core Gallery. There's an opening reception from 6 to 9 p.m. and that show runs through November 28th. After the opening reception, though, we want to emphasize, we talked about, there is the Unfurling of Desire, which is an event at Art Sanctuary where both Sabra and Edwin have spaces in which, full disclosure, LVA actually runs an adult figure drawing there. I don't mean to be, so it's like, but we're all in the same world and a part of things. And so Art Sanctuary is very cool people in a great space. So, don't plan anything else for your night. Just turn it over to Desire.
It's all taken care of.
It's all taken care of. All right. Well, thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you, Keith. We really appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having us.